If you all want to keep on chatting, I say go for it. You don't have to sign off on my schedule, but just putting that out there. Um, yeah. So I had a request to kind of focus the start of this one on, COVID workflow and, kind of a conversation about what new practices we've all adopted to work within the COVID protocols and just this new environment. What's maybe working, what's maybe not, and what you might be holding on to once we get out of this, environment and back to whatever normal becomes. What's working. So, I guess I'll kick off with just a little brief bit about how I'm doing it, and then I'd love to hear from everyone else. Um, I have long been a pen and paper script supervisor, and I don't intend to change it if I don't have to. So the big changes for me is that I'm sort of my own production office. I have to generate all my own paperwork. I have to scan it at the end of the night, and I send it in on my own, which has really been the only major change. And it's probably something I'll keep doing moving forward because now I'm guaranteed to always have what I need, and I can do my wrap out on my own time. So that's kind of it for me. I didn't change much, to be completely honest. And I'm on shows where, although we were told everyone's going digital, I'm still getting paper camera reports. So it doesn't really feel that different for me. But the benefit of having what I need when I need it and knowing that has been good. Has anyone else had to change their system more dramatically than that, or is everyone sort of working kind of how you were? Anybody?
I can speak to the fact that I had a similar situation to what you've been doing, Rachel. In the beginning of the job I was on, they were happy to supply me with paper, but they didn't want me to hand in my own paper. So I was scanning as you described at the end of the day. We really shot a tremendous amount of material. And part of it had to do with the way COVID is scheduled, or COVID affects the scheduling. But besides the fact, it was a half-hour comedy. The scripts were 30 pages long, and it was not uncommon for me to have lining work to do on more than half of the pages. So by the time you scan all of that information, that takes a significant amount of time. And they were riding me like white on rice for the fact that they thought I should be able to finish all my work within an hour. And it just didn't happen. And I won't go into the details of how ugly it got before the situation got corrected, but 2 weeks in, the production manager asked the coordinator how he would feel about handling my paper. And the coordinator and his whole staff was totally fine with it. And so they took that away, and I no longer had to do all that scanning at the end of the day. I only scanned lined pages to the editor if we were going to have a late day call. Or I would get to work in the morning and do it then if we were on location. After I had prepped for the day, I would then scan the line pages. But they still took all of my written notes back to the office and distributed as if it were the old days.
Wow. Yeah, I have to quarantine my binders at the end of an episode before I can turn them into the office, where then they quarantine them again.
There's a lot of shows that are taking script supervisor paperwork again. Early on in my job, Deirdre Horgan told me that from the beginning, they took her paperwork.
Okay. Well, I bought a scanner, and I actually don't mind doing it at home. It's made it faster because I was doing it with the phone, and that took too long for me. But all right. Is there anyone else pen and paper who's had to change their workflow out there?
I used to do the scanning. This is Veronica Lupu. I used to do the scanning even before COVID. So I'm paper as well, and happily remain on it. Also, I just want to tell you all, I did my vaccine.
Yay.
And there is a way you can, okay, of course, you check when your turn comes. You are much too young to have it, but you can check in your neighborhood what it is. I just went to Rite Aid and put myself on the waiting list. And they called me within 2 weeks and I did it. And now next week I'll do the second dose.
Nice. All
Now-
right.
Can I ask a question about paper and pen?
Mhm.
So it's Gail. Hi.
Hi, Gail.
So on shows and things like that, I'm still paper and pen, though commercials I do digital. If you go in, and I haven't done it yet since COVID or anything. If you go in on a second unit, how does the paper and pen work with that? Because I've gone on shows before and they didn't know how to send paper scripts to me and so forth. So I can only imagine now that it's even worse. So how is that working out? Can you go on and do a second unit with somebody who's doing digital and get the paperwork and get so forth? Anybody have to deal with that?
Gail, every show out there is still sending sides to the set.
They are.
Yeah, I mean, for me, our production office provided all of the script pages needed when I had to have someone step in and cover me, but I had to provide a sealed, sanitized envelope of all the blank forms. The person who stepped in for me, I offered, they also work digitally and paper. And I offered, if it's easier to work digitally, the show doesn't really seem to care as long as they get the notes. But she opted to use paper. So in order to do that, I had to provide that to production, who then rerouted it to her.
You provided the forms.
All the forms, all the blank paperwork that I generate, and they sent the scripts. So she had her own set. I could not send my binder. They would not allow that to be in two different sets of hands.
So she wasn't allowed to look at your binder
No. So I had to,
and whatever necessary.
yeah. But to get someone to sub on my show, it needs to be cleared at least 3 days in advance for that person to get into our testing schedule. So that gives me a few days to, prep everything and provide the notes.
Right. That's also a question of what about the testing schedule when you go in for a second unit? How does that work?
I can only speak for my show. I need to have it on the books at least 3 days prior. So if I needed someone to sub for me towards the end of next week, I couldn't get anyone in before Wednesday, and that person would have to test on Monday and then again on Wednesday.
Again on Wednesday.
Hey
Yeah.
guys, I'm currently in quarantine, doing second unit next week on a show. And I had to test at home on Tuesday, last Tuesday, traveled on Wednesday, because it's out of town. I've been quarantined in this hotel. I'm quarantined from getting here Wednesday night through Sunday. We're supposed to start shooting Monday, but now it's been pushed to Tuesday because of weather. So I'm in quarantine. I'll be in quarantine for 5 days by the time we start shooting.
And they're paying you for that.
Yeah, I'm getting paid for being in quarantine. And I also had to test. I had to go to the studio yesterday to get tested. And I also had to get tested this morning. And I'll get tested the morning, rapid tested the morning of my first shoot day.
It seems to me most shows, at least those of us in zone A or red zone or whatever the zone is called on your show where you're closer to the actors, I feel like most of us at least are testing 3 times a week. But I do know there are some shows that are testing daily.
The shows I've been on, I've been doing a lot of second unit the past couple of months. Most of them have to have a PCR test within 48 hours of your first day on set. And ironically enough, I've been doing enough second unit that I've been staying in cadence. So my test for one show will roll over onto another show, and it's a lot of tracking down paperwork, but it seems to work. And I've ended up testing most every day because I'm hopping from one show to another. But a lot of shows, well, let me rephrase that. One of the shows I seem to be on a lot, they've done away with rapid tests, and now they're having everyone just do PCRs. Some shows are doing a mix of PCR and rapid. It seems to be a show-to-show basis on that.
Mhm. Yeah, I'm on a Disney show. Disney will only accept PCRs. We're not allowed to rapid test at all.
I
Okay.
had to come in on a show that was a Disney show, and it was very last minute because they already had someone on to do a tandem unit, and then they had to like bail last minute. And then it was not enough time to sort of test someone new. So then they were trying to find someone who was already within the Disney testing system, because they wouldn't take someone that was from, you know, a different protocol that a different studio was using. And because I'd sort of day played on another Disney show, I was able to come in and do that using the proof that I had tested negative for this other show that day. That was like, you know, adequate to sort of work on the other show, the second show, without having a new test because there was just not enough time. And then another sort of situation to answer Gail's question. There was a splinter unit situation. You know, again, it was one of those things that should have been picked up by the production manager. It was one of those things I'm sure they thought that they could sort of not have a script supervisor come in that day, but then the work kind of like built up more and more. And then when I saw it on the prelim, I said, well, you're going to bring someone in for this, right? And then when they decided that they did need someone to bring in for it, then it was kind of like, well, like, I think this was about sort of 10 a.m. in the morning. They would be working Splinter the next day. So then it was kind of like, you know, I just sent out a blast on the New York Script Supervisors Network because I knew that would be the fastest way for someone to sort of contact the production supervisor in order to test before 2 p.m. that day. You know, and within 1 hour, she had sort of booked someone. And then what they ended up doing was they ended up concierging someone to that person's home and doing the test there. And then, you know, so that was like a, whatever cost that was, they sort of sucked up because, you know, they didn't sort of, you know, prepare in time, you know, but they were prepared to sort of do that. And that's what ended up happening.
All right, so this testing with people coming in also feeds into another question I was sent. So I think I'll transition to that. Is anyone out there alternating, and how do you find that is working and working with the testing schedule? Diane, I see your hand raised.
Hi guys, yeah, I'm on Prodigal Son and I alternate with Melanie Mander, and we're both pencil and paper. So going back to that conversation, and we basically, we get our sides on set, they give us our script. There's nothing about like sterilizing the pages before we get them or whatever. But at the end of the day, we both just scan our notes. I like use my phone. I don't know what Melanie does. We scan our notes and email them in, and it's gone quite smoothly enough. As far as testing goes, we get tested, PCR testing 4 times a week. And usually on Wednesdays, we get a rapid test as well. They had to change the schedule because of actor availability and because one of the actors tested positive. So they had to change the schedule. And so because I suddenly was working on Wednesday when I was not scheduled to have worked on Wednesday, they sent a concierge person to test me, and they offered it. I was ready to like jump in my car and drive out to Silver Cup to get tested, but they offered it. And I have a feeling because she was already on the books and because she was in the neighborhood and testing some actor, they probably figured it was cheaper to just send her over to my place and test me than pay me the $250 stipend for me to get in my car and drive to Silver Cup. So there's that. And I don't know if that was, no, I don't think it was a rapid test. It was a PCR test, but I got the results by like that night or whatever. It was like really quick for a PCR test. So
Diane, you should check on that. I think you still get the stipend. I've had concierge testing and I get the stipend for it.
I checked with Colleen and Jennifer. I shot them a quick email and the reply was, if you get a concierge test, it's a $20 stipend. So that's what I put in for. And then I had to go again. Yesterday, I did have to go to the studio to get tested to work on Monday. So that I put on my time card for the $250 stipend. So.
Anyone, I remember a couple months back, people were bumping into problems getting that stipend. Has that seemed to resolve for everybody? Is everyone getting that stipend fairly easily?
Mhm.
Cool, that's good to hear.
Once in a while, my I don't know if it's payroll or who forgets to give me the that pass card stipend. You know, the little app that you have to like take your temperature at home and answer the questions. On my show, they call it pass card on the thing. So every once in a while, I have to remind payroll, hey, you forgot to give me my pass card for this week. But
What's
they're
the,
usually
what's
okay.
the stipend for that?
6 minutes.
I'm sorry, $6?
6 minutes.
6 minutes.
1/10 of an hour.
1/10 of an hour. Yeah.
On the show I was on, when we had to go in to be tested prior to returning to work after the Christmas hiatus, it was no problem. Everyone got paid the $250 stipend. At Thanksgiving, when we were directed to do a self-administered test at home and then take the sample to a designated FedEx place that would accept human materials, or medical, whatever they call it, that was going to be $20 production offered. But then Local 52 on the Tuesday night before Thanksgiving, which was the night before our last day before this weekend, Local 52 sent out an email to all of their members, and our shop steward shared it with us, that the way they read the agreement with the producers vis-a-vis the stipend is that the only way you can get $20 stipend is if they send someone to your home. And if they had sent someone to everyone's home to collect said sample, $20 would have been acceptable. But they insist, Local 52 insisted to the producer that if the person, the union member themselves, had to leave home to go somewhere, even if only to drop off the sample of a self-administered test, that qualified as having to go somewhere. And for some, I mean, for me, I live in Manhattan, so it was 2.5 blocks away for the nearest FedEx place that would accept it. But there were people on our crew who live upstate who literally drove, 75 miles round trip to get to a place. So you can understand why it would be. So right now, cut to the chase, it's in a grievance. A grievance has been filed. I had to contact Colleen so that she would enter that grievance along with all of the other New York production locals. And that was at Thanksgiving, and it's still not settled. Big surprise there.
Gail, I see your hand.
I have a question. Okay, in the commercial world, anybody out there in the commercial world? So I've been working mainly with one company, and now that we just go there and get a test right at the stage, which happens to be 15 minutes from my house. So that makes it good for me. Commercials, by the way, only get $175 for testing. Unlike, how you were complaining about the $250? Well, we're screwed even more. So, but what I wanted to know is how are other people dealing with it? Like if you're working with a company, do they make you come in to get tested by them, or do you have to get tested on your own? Or how are other people working in commercials on testing? Anybody out there? Or am I the only commercial person?
The commercials that I've done, which have actually unusually for me been a lot this year. They've always arranged a testing site or either on production or something like that. So it's been pretty much like a regular show. This is in Atlanta, so it seems to be working out fine for us.
Okay. In Florida, to say the same thing, in Florida, we go to a testing site, and they paid us for our transportation to do that. And then once I was offered a concierge to come to my house.
Laura Pinto here in Florida as well, and same thing, 175, and you have to go to the testing site. I have not been offered a concierge yet.
And if you work on multiple companies that week, has anybody, do they?
Yes,
you look at
yes.
They take the testing that you had already from somebody
They have
else?
for me.
Yes, for me as well.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so that's commercial testing. Anything else about testing before I turn it again?
Oh, one more thing, actually.
Please.
I day played on a show, and in filling out the massive online paperwork, one of the things was that I could either take some, what's it called? A little mini course about COVID safety and protocol, or I could submit instead that required IATSE online course that we had to do and send that certificate to them. So I was able to, oh, hi, Charlotte. I was able to send that certificate, and that saved me a lot of time. So, so that's something to mention. Okay, bye.
Can I make, this is Deirdre Horgan. To Mary's point about when we were on hiatus for Christmas, we had to get tested 4 times a week. 4 times. And what we did was, our argument was, well, we have to be available at 10 o'clock for the guy in LA to do a Zoom. Then we have to go out to FedEx, like Mary said. And I just played, Jennifer said to me, no, it's not, it's like the $20, it's nothing. And I played dumb. I said, this is ridiculous. They made me be available. They made me do this. They made me do that. And I put in for it and I got paid. And it might've been the accountants, but I went to hair and makeup, Bernadette and Dawn. And I said, did you put in? They said, no. I said, well, I got paid, guys. I went to camera. I said, did you put in? They were like, no. I said, well, I got paid. So everybody put in and everybody got paid for that. And I told Jennifer, I said, this is a precedence when you have to be available for them and then go put it in, it's, maybe it was my accountants, but like nobody gave me a hard time. And one day they wanted us to test on a holiday. And I said, I'm not going all the way to the Bronx. I just can't do it. It was a Saturday. And they were like, okay, we'll send you to Pro Health and do it. And I still put in for the $250 and I got paid. So it just also seems so inconsistent between the productions. I just play dumb and put it in all the time, and if they call me on it, they're going to call me on it and I'll deal with, and then I tell Jennifer my game plan and what she should say. And she's been pretty good about it. But yeah, it's, and we're tested 3 times a week. We're tested, some people are rapid tested every day also. And we had a night shoot last night and all of a sudden the actress that we were working with, her assistant tested positive. So they were like, all right, guys, we're not working tonight. And we were like, so you never know.
Hi, I'm Tony Oso. Hi everyone, some familiar faces. I'm starting season 2 of Power, book 2, Ghost this week. We are alternating. I'm alternating with Simone LaJolis. She did the first episode of season 2. I'm doing evens. We are PCR testing Monday, Wednesday, Friday. I will go in Monday because I start shooting on Wednesday and do a test. So that's basically how they have us doing it. You know, if I were starting Monday, they would have had me go in on Friday and what have you. We are both on paper. We don't scan. We give paper to our paperwork PA still. We're like both, you know, grind our heels into the ground and are like, here, this is how we do this. But my question was, if I understood correctly, the 6 minutes, the 1/10 of an hour that we are entitled to, am I understanding this correctly, for filling out, you know, the email that we've been getting an email every morning asking us to fill out the questionnaire, you know, about our behavior? Is that what you're talking about? And if so, how do you represent that on your time cards?
You might have to ask your payroll accountant how they want it worded. I was writing down in the comment section, home screening test or something like that. And I think at first that's why she wasn't paying it, because I think I just was using the wrong verbiage. So then I asked her, what do you want me to write down? And she said, just write pass card. So that's what I started to do. So now I just write down pass card. So maybe just check in with, ask Simone what she's been doing. And I guess your email thing might correspond to this app that we have from Warner.
We basically get an email every morning that we're shooting that says, you know, you have to fill this out before you come to set.
Do you have to take a temperature?
It asks you if you have a fee. Yeah, I mean,
Probably have to take a
it
temperature.
asks. Yeah, I mean,
Right. I would imagine
it's like 4 questions. It's like 4 questions or 5 questions.
Right.
You get like a green. You get like a green, you know, okay,
Yes.
work thing. So I think I haven't seen the word pass card, but I think it's the same idea. I just haven't, I'm pretty sure Simone doesn't know, and we've never, was this instituted last year, or do you know how recent it is? Because it's the first time hearing of it.
Once we got back to work in, you know, I went back to work in November, Melanie went back to work in October. It sort of looks like this, if, oh dear,
It was
kind of show.
came about as part of the when they finally made the agreement in September. It was the 21st of September, I believe. They finally came to agreement with the AMPTP, not the commercial one, but the one for movies and TV with the AMPTP. That's when it came about. And I don't know if it was exactly worded in that document or if it was literally within a week of that document, Tony.
Yeah.
But it came about because of the shows that are employing this system, because they aren't all doing that. Like on my job, you showed up and they took your temperature and they asked you those questions. But on the reshoot I did in September, they wanted you to log on to this site and answer these questions before you showed up at the desk to get your wristband. And those are the jobs where they're paying this 6 minutes at the head of the day.
So I'm in the middle basically, because we take the questionnaire at home, but I just remember that when I arrive to get my wristband for the day of work, they take the temperature themselves.
But if you have to do something before you show up to work, essentially, this questionnaire is qualifying as something you have to do before you show up. So that's why you would get the 6 minutes.
Okay, so what I'll do is I'll check in with our payroll accountant and say, how do you want me to represent this? Because it's a 1/10 of an hour is half an hour of work a week. Yeah.
Yeah. And the fact that not everyone is aware of this and it hasn't been widely disseminated is problematic.
Well, I would have appreciated, I guess, if 161 had sent out an email that said, hey, so just to summarize, if you're having a concierge come to you, it's a $20 bump to your, and $250, you know, if I'm understanding correctly, there's $250 if you have to go get tested, $20 if someone comes to you, and this 1/10 of an hour. I don't see why we weren't notified of this when it was decided upon, because I would have gotten it.
We were, it was sent out, and it is on the website. It's in the contracts section, because there was remember when the Safeway Forward came out, and then we waited for months and months and months for them to come to an agreement. And they finally did. I'm not sure when it was dated, but I put the
It was
link
September
in the chat.
1st.
Yeah, it's and I mean, we talked about it in the script supervisor committee. It's the union doesn't keep reminding you and pushing the same thing, but they did send it out, and it is there to read. And I recommend everyone should download it to their devices so they always have it on hand.
Well, I guess I would also recommend then that there be a bullet point distillation of what's in it too, for people who are prepping a job and freaked out about it too, in addition. I'm sure that it's in the contract paperwork somewhere, but I'm not great at reading contracts. Personally, I'm just saying as a potential, additional help to us. And I can check with my producers if they also knew about it or not in terms of what happened in the past. But I'm really grateful for the information now, and going forward, I'll use it and I'll let Simone know about it too. So thank you for that.
Just a question for Diane. So when you do put in for it, does it come up as a separate line item on your time card? I assume she's
yes. Yes. Sorry, I was looking at the link that you just put in the chat about that the return to work agreement that if anybody didn't notice that Sharon put that in the chat, it's in there. But yes, I do put it in it shows up as pass card on my time card on my pay stub. And then if I get tested, it shows up, I think, as COVID test or something. I could go look.
Although the first show I did coming back last year, I literally had to add it, the click to the beginning of my day, my end time, because there was such a problem with payroll on that show. So again, it's a show by show basis on how they want you to do it. But if a show is not going to honor it, add it to your start time.
I think I remembered you mentioning that, Karen.
Oh yeah,
yeah. We had big discussions about that. So when I went back to work, we were asking, do we put this in as a pre-call thing, and so we were told no, it'll be just put it in the comments.
I know. I still have a grievance against that show, so.
Well, the more we share here, the more of us know to ask for it.
Yeah, that's so true, because I had no idea either, and have been having all kinds of thank you to so many people who on NYSSN responded with some questions I was having, because I'm having a lot of issues with payroll, and I'm really looking forward to the email I'm going to write this afternoon about, oh, by the way, 0.6 for the last 3 weeks. And Tony, I do too. We have to do the email. It comes as an email or a text. We have to do that, and we get scoped and questioned, and we're getting tested daily.
Yeah.
And the testing, we get a testing time, and it changes every day what time it is. And I thus far have never been ahead of my call time. It's often at a really awkward time, like 40 minutes after call, and we're out in the woods. And so it's like, I get there. I've been trying to slide in early and just getting to set late, because I can't get from the woods back down to base camp and then back out to the woods. That, the round trip ends up being 25, 30 minutes a lot of times.
Of course. I remember when I did the final episode that I did in the fall of this show, a couple of times they sent them up to set, because me and the AD, for example, couldn't get back down to them. Right. And my friend Janet, who's a scenic, is like, don't come in early. They have to pay you. You're on the clock when they test you. So she was very don't, so I would sometimes, if I managed to get there early, I would do it. But if I wasn't, I
Right.
would go to set. And if I couldn't make it back, or they said, you know, you're one of the few people left to test, I was like, well, take me, I guess, but I'm leaving work.
Right.
And they would send people up. Occasionally that happened. And though I have to say that I did get 2 checks for like $95 each at the end of the year. And I wonder if that was some sort of, like,
Back.
there was no explanation from payroll. So I wonder if that was either making up for the 250, because at some point I had been told we were getting 4 hours flat of work for the testing days. So I don't know if that was making up for the discrepancy or if it was for the 1/6. Again, there was no explanation from them, so I just deposited it. So I don't know, but I'm glad going forward, what I'll do is, you know, so Sharon, you're saying that the email on September 22nd, they sent the summary at the same time that was 13 pages?
Yeah, I just searched for it in my email, and they sent both the document, the contract language, and
Yeah.
also a 13-page summary.
Oh, okay, I'm gonna look for that because I don't remember it, but
Yeah, that summary is also on the 161 website.
all right, good. 13 pages of legalese is a little easier.
Well, it's also, you know, we have been talking about it, you know, because we've had a lot of seminars and stuff like that, you know, so maybe because you haven't sort of dropped in on the other ones, this, you know, this is probably the first time you've heard about it.
Yeah.
Surprising
Also-
number of people who haven't heard of this. I'm sorry, who did I cut off?
Oh, no, it was Deirdre. I was just listening to, I get a time that I'm supposed to be tested also, which it's like, in order not to give us a pre-call, they say anytime from 7 to 11:30 or 10, you know, depending what our call is. And I just, you know, it's like, okay, when am I going to be able to run away? So I always get there, you know, like just at call, and I say to them, you know, I'm doing my thing right at call. I'm not running out. I'm not. And they always let me. They never say, nope, you have to stick to your time. And then when I get to set for a rehearsal, or when, you know, that's when I get there. But it's right on it's right on the set, or it's right at base camp where we are. So I don't, you know, Kim, I don't adhere to that. They tell me. I'm like, you know, come on, guys, you got to do it my way. And they've been great so far.
I get pushback, but you know, the people I'm dealing with are COVID PA people, so I'm trying very hard not to push hard against them because they're just the
Right,
messengers.
PAs, right.
So I just and honestly, you know, they try to slip me in, but you know, and it was a lot of emails like guys, you can't, you know, it's this really isn't working where you have me scheduled. And they've been getting a little bit better at scheduling me kind of closer to call. And again, luckily we're in the woods, so we're not in a situation where like we're not getting a shot off in the first 25 minutes, half an hour, because
Right.
25 minutes, a half an hour just for everybody to push their crap up and down hills and drag it through the snow.
Right.
So I have that leeway. I mean, the upside of the weather and the snow, nobody's doing anything for an hour because we're all sweating, but nobody's getting any shots done. So, yeah, I mean, it is what it is, I guess. And there are times when I've just had to say, I gotta go do my test, guys. So.
You
So
know, Kim,
has-
on my job, I was running into a similar problem. Sorry, Alex. I
Yeah,
worked
go
with
ahead.
the AD department. I didn't go through COVID. I worked with the ADs and used them as a liaison for them to say, hey, listen, if the director, the script supervisor, the DP, and like a short list of people come to you, you need to test them immediately.
Right.
And it took about a week to cycle in, but I really needed the AD department to say that through them.
Yeah.
I don't know if that'll help. Alex?
Yeah, I was just wondering if it was like the majority experience where people were assigned a time, because on my show, we all had a pre-call. We all got tested before we went to set. We couldn't even get to set unless we had been tested. We were tested every single day.
I don't know. I'm tested every single day, but this is, I mean, the show that I did in October, which was finishing something, we didn't have a time. We did it in the parking lot, actually. Everybody got tested, like you're saying, in the parking lot, basically, before we went anywhere. This show is different and much bigger. And yeah, and in some ways not terribly functional. So I don't know that anything we're doing is an example for anyone else, honestly.
Yeah, on
It's
our
been kind of a mix for me.
yeah.
Some shows are doing the, you must test before you come to set, and some of them are like, nope, you got to stick this time. Then nobody really listens to what their assigned time anyway. They just go when they can go. I mean, because if they give me a time, I'm like, well, I can't guarantee that I can make that time, so I'll be there when I be there.
Our show does a testing window. Theoretically, they have a list they check off, but we've had a couple instances where we test on Monday, Wednesday, Friday. We've had a couple instances on Tuesdays and Thursdays where it's like, I'm sorry, our B camera operator, you didn't test yesterday. You need to go home. So there's not a lot of follow through. It's very exciting where we are.
On my show, there's a time next to everyone's name on my show on the back of the call sheet. Just says this time. And if you don't, they'll hunt you down, which they always hunt me down, and they come to me.
That's our show said no more. They wouldn't. Our DP tends to not like to test, and was trying to make them bring the people to set, and they put their foot down and said, we're not bringing the nurses to set anymore. You have to go. So we're chipping away.
So they should give him a pre-call. For us too, they didn't want to give us pre-calls. It was a matter of like, whenever you can get away from set. And some days they were emailing me saying, hey, you haven't gotten tested yet. They're closing the trailer in, 45 minutes. And, we would just be starting to rehearse and just couldn't get away. So now, and then a couple of mornings, they did start giving us timed testing times. And my testing time was right at call, which was right when rehearsal was starting. So I went up to the UPM and the first AD who was on set. And I said, so would you prefer I go get tested now, or would you prefer I go to rehearsal now? You've got me on the call sheet for going to get tested right now. What do I do? You tell me. So I went to rehearsal and I just went and got tested after rehearsal was over. But now I'm getting pre-calls to get tested. So.
Okay. A while back, I just want to jump in really quickly. Cynthia, you had your hand up. I just wanted to acknowledge that. And if you wanted to jump in, or if you're good at this point.
No, my question was answered. Thank you.
Okay, cool. Just wanted to make sure. All right. I have 15 minutes left, guys. So the two topics I wanted to hit, I wanted to circle back because I totally hijacked the conversation about workflow by starting with pen and paper. And I just want to give anyone who works digitally a chance to jump in if you've made any significant changes to your workflow, anything that you love, you hate, that you plan to take forward, or nothing has changed. Just to give you guys a shot at it. I'm going to take silence as nothing has changed much. I'm not sure.
I think we have raised hands.
Oh, you did raise hands. Here we go. Laura, go for it.
Hi, I just did my first remote. It was on a commercial. It was really tough. I had 3 devices going. Has anybody else done this? And oh my gosh, I have so many suggestions for how it could have gone better.
Remote commercials are so strange. I mean, I had like one iPad with the set picture of the sound, and it was very odd communicating back and forth with the ADs, the ACs and everything. The set communication could be so much better. I mean, I had such a hard time trying to communicate with them because I'd give them a note and suddenly 15 minutes later, they'd finally look at their text. It's like, guys. It's just...
Exactly. Whether we need a liaison or something, we're doing an insert of the product and she's got it in the wrong hand and, they're shooting it. And I'm like, hello, is anybody listening to me? So that was very frustrating. Also, I wasn't in contact with the director or the first AD at all. I never heard their voices because we didn't have sound come in till late. I never heard the director's voice. I didn't know what he liked, what he didn't like. I could see on the screen, because I was also getting a Q take, that the first AD was instructing the talent, but I have no idea what he was saying. I mean, there's no way for me to say, the top of this was good and the last part was not good. And but most especially my, my concern was having someone there who would listen to me and hear, okay, you got your hand model in there. She does not have the wedding ring on and she's flipping the product back and forth. Somebody do something, you know what I mean? The VTR operator was amazing. He helped me a lot, but he certainly couldn't step in and say, hey, she's got it in the wrong hand. So, I think that needs to be addressed and hopefully it will be in the future.
In my experience, hi everyone. In my experience, they put a laptop and the director and I were just on a Zoom call the whole time we were shooting. So I could just be right in his face and the DP was right next to him and that's how we did that. So maybe next time ask for something like that. I didn't ask for that. They did it, which was great, but it was super helpful to just be right in his face the entire time.
Yeah, and I've done that. Well, the director was remote and I was on set. And so, I just guess it depends on the set, whether they're going to do something like that. The VTR operator said that on some sets, he does a GoPro. Whatever it is, that'd be great to have that feed, but that's my 2 cents. Thank you for listening.
Thanks, Laura.
I did a semi once, the same thing, Laura. But I had a Zoom feed. I was on set with the producer. Of course, we were way away from everybody else, and there was great space between us. We were all masked, but the agency and the director were remote. Actually, there were 2 directors. They were remote, and I spoke to them via a Zoom call.
Right.
We had connected to them via Zoom.
Right. So the 3 devices that I had going was I had a Zoom call that I was connected to with the producer and the client agency, and that was getting a camera feed. Then on the other devices, how I do my notes, I was getting the Q-Take feed and doing my notes. That's something that I do normally on set. And then my phone, I was texting furiously with everybody while timing, while, it was, there's lots of room for improvement. And I don't know, I'm looking forward to that.
There is a system that I heard about a while ago that was developed in Florida by, I think it's ESPN, and they literally have and I think I heard about this also here. One of our meetings a few months ago, where there's some kind of system. It comes through your phone, but they turn your phone into a walkie-talkie.
Yeah.
And you can communicate via different channels. Mary, did you bring this up at one point? I think, which was very good. And I looked them up online, and they sounded really terrific.
Yeah, I looked into that as well. I will say this about, continuity. I just wish I could see what was going on set, because for me, whether it's a commercial or a show, I'm checking out the talent before they get to the set. I'm not going to wait until they're on camera and say, hey, 2 buttons, no good. Wedding ring is not on, all that stuff. And that's really inhibiting for me as a script supervisor. Hey, how am I supposed to check out continuity, which is what I normally do by watching what's going on around me? And that's another challenge.
Somebody at some point made the suggestion, they call it a witness camera, which is high and wide. It sees not just the set, but everything off the set. You see you're not looking at the people, you're looking at the set, but it's wide enough that you can see what's going on outside of what the camera is seeing. It was a separate feed, and it sounds like a wonderful idea. It was called a witness camera. It's high, wide, dirty, but at least you can see when the props are coming in, when the grips are setting alight, when different things are happening around you, and you can get a lot from that.
Yeah, we had one of those on my show, because at different times, respectively, the DP got COVID and was gone. And so he was having to work remotely from his bed. And he had a witness cam in addition to the camera feeds. And then when the director also later got sick, same thing. He had access to a witness cam. And I guess that was probably pretty helpful for them to view what was happening on set. I work digitally, and I have not worked remotely, though. As I just mentioned, I've worked with directors and DPs that have worked remotely. It was extremely stressful. it was a lot of work. But besides that, I guess the main difference was just the fact that I was further away than I normally would be from the director. I was generally like 10 feet away in like my own little continuity corner, and just like in an island. And yeah, that was like the main difference for me, was just trying to keep further away from everybody. And I guess it worked because I'm the only person that didn't get COVID. So that would be a recommendation.
I'm going to jump in because I'm at the 10-minute mark before I sign off. One thing I do want to bring up before I do have to sign off is I wanted to let everyone know that next month, the town hall, I'll be hosting one on the topic of parenting and working during the pandemic. Open obviously to all crafts and anyone who's interested, and anyone with children, of course. So in the interim, if anyone has any questions specifically for that, I'll put my email in the chat. I'll ask that you send me the questions so that I can get them to our presenter and she can start basing a presentation around people's interests. All right, so anyone else?
I have one quick question towards that, which is just simply, how do you do it? That would be my question.
How do you mean?
How do you do it all as a mother and as a script supervisor? I just find it amazing.
No idea if there's an answer to that.
We can talk about it next time.
I had help. The only way I did it is when the kids were little, I had a live-in housekeeper 5 days a week. And that was the only way to do it for me. She disappeared on the weekends, but I found that was the only way I could work.
Yeah, it's definitely a balancing act, and it does require a lot of help, takes a village, but we can save all the parenting talk for the next one. I know not everybody here is exactly interested in that. If Alex, if you guys want to keep going, shall I hand the baton to you?
Sure.
Going, or we can wrap it up in a couple minutes. I kind of leave it open to everybody. If there's more that people want to discuss, I know it's been a while. We haven't met since December.
Yeah, I think Sharon, did you have your hand raised at some point there?
Yeah, I was just to answer the sort of the question about working digitally. I just wanted to go back to distribution, because what I do find annoying is kind of like similar to what you were saying at the beginning, Rachel, when you were saying that you had become your own production office, and we're kind of becoming our own production office too digitally. And something that really annoys me is that, you know, we are tasked with distributing our notes to everyone. And that, you know, it's like a small thing, but I was on a job, you know, that was big and sort of out of control and sort of not managed that well. And people kept changing. People were leaving or getting fired all the time, you know, so I was constantly being told to update a list of like 20 to 25 names. Like literally every 2 weeks, I felt I was like changing the list because people were coming and going. And normally, you know, before this, I would just email the production office and the post department, and then they would distribute to their people, to their editors, to their assistant editors and everything like that. But it kind of seems like it's just, you know, the script supervisor is, you know, in charge of distribution now. And also the other thing that is a bit concerning is that I don't think it's very secure, you know, because I'm sort of sending something, a link from my own personal Dropbox account, and I could send out individual passwords for like 20 people, but obviously like I don't have the time to do that every day. On another job that I'm prepping, like it sounds like they're gonna just have me upload to a secure server so that everyone can just access that. So that will sort of solve both those problems, you know, but I do find it, without that, it's annoying and it does take up time. And I was wondering, when you were talking about doing all that distribution and all that scanning yourself, like, are you able to sort of charge extra time for all of that? Because I'm sure it does take up a bit of extra time.
I mean, I've been trying to put my out time the moment I hit send on the last email that goes out.
And how much time would you say like is added to your work by sort of doing your own distribution and doing all that stuff?
It
that
was, you know,
the office stuff.
It varies depending on the volume of the work. We are doing some crossboarding, but we have different editors, so I have to keep every episode separate. I can't really do like a, you know, 105, 106 report. I have to do a 105 and a 106. So it depends on the volume and how many episodes we're shooting in a day as to what it takes me. But I spend a lot of time in the front end of it, creating myself lists. So it's just a one click, and that this report goes to these people list. And I've had the office update it when there are changes.
I actually have my own website and my own server, and I upload everything there. And then people are given certain necessary people, like production is given a link. The AD department is given a link, and so is the assistant editor. He has a link, and I upload everything, and they take it down themselves. I've simplified it that way. I've been doing it that way for years, and it's much faster to do it that way and than it is through email. And because you got these large files, and sometimes they get corrupted through email. But when you have your own server, you just click it all together and it all goes up. And I no longer wrap out anything on a set. I go back to my hotel room. I set up my scanner. It's an all-in-one printer. I do all my printing. I scan everything all my line pages, because I still do that by hand. I scan it all in. I make sure I have a document feeder. I don't care. They got to get me, if it costs them a $300 printer, they're going to get me a $300 printer, because the difference in my time of trying to do individual scans is absurd. So I do a scan, a document feeder. I scan it all in at once. All the notes are uploaded. I organize everything by day. So every shoot day, everything is, the opposite pages, everything is, and by the way, I built my own database. I don't use, it's closer to Peter Scarrett's. I've been doing this since 2004, long before Scripty was in the works. And I just built my own database, and I just do opposite pages and everything that way. And I have a simple system, and it works. So I don't spend as much time doing it, but yes, I feel your pain. And I just won't do it on a set anymore. And they all know that. I said, nope, this is how I work. I go back to my hotel room. You'll have it, and it'll all be ready in the morning if you don't get to it completely at night. And they go for it. They're happy.
But I think that the point is that, if it is taking extra time, we should be charging that. And if it is costing other things like, to sort of host your own server, to have like security protocols and password protocols in place.
That's easy.
And,
On a server, that's very easy to do.
Yeah, but that is something that we should also be charging for. And that should be part of our kit and a part of the service that we are providing too.
I agree.
Agreed. And Joan, I'm going to reach out to you offline because I want to ask some questions. I do have to sign off at this point, so I just wanted to say thank you again. Guys, my daughter says hello. I'm going to hand the torch over to Alex. Here, go ahead, say hi. There we go.
Hi, good afternoon.
I'm going to sign it off. I'm going to hand it off to Alex. I really look forward to seeing you guys again in the future. All right. Take care, guys. Thank you.
Bye, Rachel.
Bye.
Thanks, Rachel. Bye.
I'm
going to leave too, I guess.
Thanks, Rachel.
Okay.
If I could ask, Diane, you take a photograph. Well, first of all, on what Sharon was saying about distributing, I have really resisted that to the extent that I've been able to, because not only do I think it's not my job, but also for the security, as you mentioned, of being responsible then for having an email address wrong, and all of a sudden, like Lionsgate, creative material is out in the world. So that's why I have been able to kind of push against it. And I even wonder if Joan's very impressive setup would even be acceptable by a studio like Lionsgate or anyone who's really on top of protecting their intellectual property. So I wonder about that. But
that's a good question. I mean, my experience, Lionsgate, Paramount, they have their own proprietary server. They use a program called Box, just BOX, and everything has to be uploaded to that. So yeah, for me, that's been pretty easy working with them, because it all goes up into there. I have everything organized by day, and whoever needs it can access it in their own free time. And I don't have the responsibility of distributing anything. So
Yeah,
you-
I would feel much more comfortable with that because I find it so sort of unbelievable that, you know, like everything is sent out through Synchronize, like the script, my breakdowns, because it
Right.
has all the contents of the story, and yet they would let me send out script pages without any security protocols at all.
Yeah, my experience with some of the studios has been that they recognize that this is kind of a weak link in security, and that's why they've pushed towards having their own encrypted proprietary databases for things to be uploaded. And I would be surprised if more don't start doing that if they haven't already, because of that. Because yeah, in it is kind of absurd, and it's also just more efficient. So I hope that's kind of the way.
Yeah, I think
wave of the future.
HBO are doing that now. It sounds like that's the way that they're doing
I
it.
wonder if there's a way to upload your notes into Synchronize then.
Right, but then you're doing office stuff, you know.
Right, exactly.
Which, you know, I think I don't want to be loaded up with doing more office stuff.
Yeah.
Reason
This
My
is
list-
Veronica.
my list of people to email is like 6 people, so
Okay,
it's not a big thing.
we had a bunch of people there.
Mhm.
Veronica, Mary, and then
Veronica.
Gail.
Veronica, I have a question. Why can't we send it as before to the production office and to have them distribute it as before? Why we have to go to the box, to that, to all these different links?
I don't,
We don't is the answer. You don't.
I don't think we should be setting a precedent to send it to everybody. I know that Scripty had the ability. I know Tony used to say that that was a thing. He could send it to everybody. But, you know, we're making extra work for ourselves. So I don't understand why we don't just send it production and not volunteer to send it to everybody.
Yeah, I send it to coordinator and have them distribute from there because I mean I view that as their job, the distributing information. I send it to them, they're connected to everybody.
Yeah, I literally have a paperwork PA standing by waiting for my envelope still. I mean, through luck or whatever, but I think that for me, that's safest. They take it, scan it, they're responsible. They bring me the pages in the morning and I'm just like, great. Did you double-sided copy it? You know, I'm still in, I don't know, 1998 or something, but I don't think we should take that. After working 12 or 14 hours, your brain, like to send an email, I think it's a lot to ask. But I wanted to ask Diane, how are you scanning? You're using your phone and taking a picture of each individual page?
So what I do is, first of all, at the end of the day, I just take a photograph of my top page, my production report, and text that to my paperwork PA and to my production secretary, and they're very happy with that. And then I use an app on my phone called Scanner Pro. There's a lot of apps that can be used. I think I learned about this from somebody at a union meeting years ago. And so, yeah, I just like scan page by page at the end of the day and send that document to like a list of 6 people. So, and it's like the same 6 people. There was one point when like the APC left and we got a new APC. So there was one name to change on that list. But yeah.
But in Scanner, but in this app, you're able to kind of bunch everything by day or in a folder or something,
exactly.
and then just send a link out.
Absolutely.
That sounds like
and it becomes
real
a PDF. It becomes a PDF, and there's like a black and white function or like a color photo function. And, you know, I find you just need to put your pages against a dark background. So like a dark wood table or a dark, like a black laminate table or, you know, whatever.
Are you doing it at home or on set?
I mostly do it on set, or when I'm at the stages, I can go to a room that's set aside for us to work in at night since we don't have a scripty office. Cynthia Balfour, I've always been jealous of you having a scripty office when you were on Law and Order. Maybe you don't have that anymore. But we've been able to get like a specified room that Melanie and I can go to at the end of the day to finish our notes. And we've just sort of worked it out with the UPM, like, look, it takes us as long as it takes us to do our notes at night. If we have 3
Does it
cameras,
take
then it
extra
takes
time to do all that scanning? Like if you have a packet that's like, 25 pages to scan every single one.
It doesn't take me too terribly long. I mean, I normally usually finish within the hour, the allotted hour. So that sometimes if we have 3 cameras and it was a really crazy busy day, I'll kind of add a little extra time at the end anyway. And email those notes when I get home so that they think I've been working longer. But anyway, no, it doesn't take so terribly long. It maybe takes me 10 or 15 minutes or something. I don't know.
Right.
But yeah, we do a lot of 3 camera days. So some days, if it's been like a particularly crazy day, I definitely charge if it takes me longer than the normal hour, and they know that. So it's like the one concession I've been able to get out of these penny pinching cheapskate producers and UPMs and all that.
And they're not concerned, no one talks about security or being nervous about you sending it out via that app or anything.
No, but we don't have that hyper awareness of security like we did on Stars when I did Power. I mean, that was a different situation. So, so if you're able to just hand off your pages at the end of the day, still, that's great. But
yeah, I think they would resist if I did any.
Yeah.
Can I ask one more quick question? I just found out this season they're asking us to do, and I've never seen this before. They're asking us to do daily time cards and no weekly time card.
Oh, I did that. We had to do that on Power the last couple of seasons.
Oh yeah, we did. We were doing a daily last year. We started just doing a weekly time card, and then they added a daily work log and the weekly time card.
I said, forget it. I'm just doing the daily time card. Forget the work. The work log is more for like department where you're the head of a department and you've got to,
right,
account for everybody in your department, like props or whatever. So after a while, I stopped doing that daily log thing and I only did the daily time card. So in a way, I just got used to it after a while because then like I was able to remember the hours that I worked and whatnot. So I just adjusted to that.
Okay, it's my first time. I'm not familiar with it. But I guess it's good because you don't have to remember anything. You just go day by day and then you have a record.
And then I think I just kept it tucked in the front of my book. So when we broke for lunch, I would like fill in like the lunch times in and out and back in or whatever. And then when I wrapped, we email our time cards to our payroll accountant time card and kit rental list, kit rental invoice. So
they give us like 7 people that we have to email our daily time cards to. And I just thought
7 people.
These poor people are getting hundreds of emails a day.
I wouldn't put my social security number on it if it's going to 7 people.
No, I know it's going to like, I want to say 7 people. It was a lot,
That's great.
That's too,
I
that's
don't
too
send
many.
it to my payroll accountant and I don't even send it to her assistant. That's it.
Right.
We're doing the same thing, daily timesheet, 7 people.
Gotcha.
Crazy.
Yeah, a lot of the shows I've been doing, second unity on are doing the same thing. I don't see why all those people need that information.
Right.
And also they're not giving out pay stubs anymore because I'm on location. My pay stubs are having to get forwarded from home and I'm trying to get EP to change the address and they can't seem to manage that. So yeah, so I can't check anything. I'm like,
Are they online with EP?
no, no. They're online with you got paid in the amount, but not, you can't, see how many hours, see what the meal penalties, make sure you're getting your housing or per diem.
Oh, wow.
That's surprising to me because we're with cast and crew. And so in order to get my pay stubs, I do go online every Saturday or whenever, Thursday, Friday, whatever, when I have time. I go into the cast and crew website and I can just, I click on pay stub and I I printed out for myself. So their EP should have something like that.
Uh,
That's kooky.
Kim, are you direct deposit or are you paper?
Luckily, sorry, I forgot my videos off. Luckily, I am direct deposit, so the money is going in. But I want to, because I'm having so many issues, I would like to be able to double check things, and I'm weeks behind.
Are you, because they do have a lot of the payroll information up on AP.
They do, but they don't have, it doesn't have things like, kit rental. It says kit rental, housing, per diem, meal penalties, like you can't check anything.
Yeah, gotcha.
You can see, yes, that I got paid and how much, what the gross and the net was and stuff, and that it got deposited, but I can't, I'm so behind. And you'd think it'd be easy to change the address too, and it's not been.
I know they're doing major renovations on their system EP, but they've been at it for a while. I don't know how much longer it'll take them to work that out.
Yeah, I was surprised. You could download one, but you have to do it one at a time. You have to email them a request. And I was like, okay, that's not a solution. So, I mean, we'll see what happens, but it's kind of like, it's been fairly well documented and proven that we're not getting COVID by handing pieces of paper to one another. So, why we can't get pay stubs, except that now an accountant or assistant can't come out to the set because they're not zone AB or whatever. It's like, I get it, but it is, it's like, okay.
They can mail them to our house.
They are mailing them. The problem is I'm on location. So mailing it to my house is unhelpful right now.
Right.
I see.
So Mary, Gail, then Cynthia, Sharon, I think all of y'all, might have had something to say. Mary, if you're still there, did you have something that you wanted to say? If I'm not sure if you're muted or if you're not there. Oh, well.
No, I'm here. I was just going to reiterate what so many other people were saying about the fact that our job is to send the notes to the coordinator, and it's the coordinator's job to disseminate them to wherever they go. Whoever wants to take on more than that, it's not for me to tell you what to do. But for anyone who's resistant to doing that, there's every reason to be resistant to doing that. It's not our gig.
We should not create a precedent on that.
Well, I even was getting pushback on my job about, actually it doesn't matter. I was getting pushback with like these are the names that you need to send to. And it was like, you know what? Here's the thing. If I send them to you, my production coordinator, I understand that they stagger the calls, and sometimes the assistant will be in before the production coordinator, sometimes the other way around, whatever. I'm happy to send it to 2 people, 3 people, whatever, the paperwork PA and then 3 people, fine. But to send it to some list of 20 plus people, particularly as Sharon pointed out that, and then people change and then blah, 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 blah. It's not our gig to do that. And I actually prevailed on them to say, listen, this is so much more efficient if you do it, because you know exactly. And if there is a transmission problem, instead of someone trying to get a hold of me while I'm at work on set, not looking at email, they can go through the proper channels of the production office the way it's always ever been. And they realized the wisdom in that approach, and they were more than happy to change the way they were doing it. And yes, I just sent it to the coordinator, the assistant, and the paperwork PA didn't even need my notes. All she wanted was the top sheet. So that's all I was going to say.
Okay, well, thank you for that, Mary. Gail, I think you had something.
I was in the same ballpark as Mary. I think it's very dangerous for our members, Sharon. As you were saying, what happens is you get bogged down to be willing to send these out to all these people. It's not our job. It's not our job to do that. And I know that we have the capability now with some of our programs that have been developed, but that doesn't make it our job. And you're not every member has that capability besides. And I don't think that we should be setting that precedent, because then, as Mary said, you have to fight not to do it because they expect it of us. So maybe people should not be so willing to say, okay, just tell me who to send it to and I'll do it.
Totally agree. So Sharon and Cynthia, did either of you have something in that line of thought, or did you have something else?
No, exactly 100% what Mary and Gail just said. Unfortunately, I think the precedent has been set, but whoever is willing to push back on that, I think should, because our job has already gotten so much harder with digital and 7 cameras, and why take that on? It is someone else's job, and they can do it better because they'll have the updated distro list. So thank you.
Yeah, and as somebody sort of mentioned earlier, it's like, we're having a heavy day, we're having to do all these things, and they're telling us to change the email addresses. And if we get the email address wrong and it goes to somebody else, who's going to get blamed for leaking that security? It's going to be us. And that shouldn't be our responsibility. Like, we should just send it to, if anything, it should just be like the production office and like the post coordinator, because their job is to coordinate. That is their job. But I actually was going to sort of mention something else to relate back to security on the payroll side. I've kind of noticed, because I've been day playing and I've been sort of like, and then I'm on a show right now, that, like how are you supposed to sort of verify your I-9? Like on the show that I'm on now, like they actually have a PA that's sort of designated to be the I-9 PA. So because you can't go to the payroll office or the production office to do it now, so they have to come to you. So that's good. But then on other shows, I kind of feel like they just expect you to sort of email your passport details and all your identification, which I don't think is cool at all. And I've, the times that I've done that, I've sent it in a separate email and I've asked them to sort of like, please delete it, after they've reviewed it, but I have to trust that they're doing that. So I did end up asking a payroll accountant, I said, what is the protocol now? Like, like what's the right way to do this? And she said, it's very normal for you to just like, FaceTime with someone or like, set up a Zoom call and do it over Zoom or FaceTime or something like that. And she said, that's perfectly acceptable. And to be honest, that's the way that, they're supposed to review it, because they're not supposed to review this random document. They're supposed to look at the document at the same time as they're looking at your face, so they should be doing it live. So I just wanted to put that out there, that if you're asked to verify your I-9, you should be doing it live, and you shouldn't be sending and emailing your personal identification to the payroll accountant and the whole payroll department.
That's a really good tip, Sharon. I've sent my ID encrypted with a password that I send separately. And then I find that all I did was email it to somebody else. And I'm like, really? I just sent you a password protected social security card and driver's license, and you just sent it away. So I like the FaceTime idea.
Yeah. So Belle, I think that you had a question about protocols. Do you want to bring that up?
Yes. So my question is, I know like Veronica had gotten her vaccination, and as we're getting more vaccinated, I didn't know if potentially there will be changes in protocol. So I want to know if one of us had worked after we've gotten vaccination, and maybe then you don't have to go through the test, or do you have to go through the test? What is it like?
Has anyone been fully vaccinated that's been back to work yet?
Maybe it's for a later date. I'm just curious because I am scheduled to work mid-May, and in Ohio, our vaccination for my age group in 2 weeks, it may happen. So I'm trying to think ahead, and I'm curious how the industry is handling as things change and improve maybe in that area?
That's a good
According to
question.
CDC, the vaccinations don't guarantee that you're not a carrier and that you can't give
Correct.
it to somebody else. So all the same protocol has to happen.
Yeah.
Okay, so you still will do quarantine and your weekly test then?
I don't think anything should change because you can still, the vaccinations supposedly keep you from having a serious illness, but you can still get it and not have any symptoms and spread it.
Yeah, that's my understanding as well. You're still a carrier, and you could still infect somebody else and hurt them. So it would probably be similar.
Thank you.
And I just know from like, Disney protocol, they sent us a whole thing, like a sort of whole Q&A about sort of getting vaccinated, and they just reaffirmed that, nothing that would not affect the protocols. We would still have the same robust protocols as people are getting vaccinated. Like we wouldn't change that for.
Thank you.
Linda, did you have a question?
Well, it was more that I was fully vaccinated. We finished yesterday. We have a couple of weeks to not be around. And from what I've heard, and I've listened quite a lot, is that they're not sure about what goes on, but people who have been vaccinated can be with one another. That seems to be safe. 2 vaccinated people can, get together who aren't in, if there is a pod. They're just not sure, but the two of the Pfizer and the Moderna are supposed to not, you're supposed to not really get sick. They're not sure, but nobody has gotten sick with the Johnson one. However, I just wanted to tell anyone who's getting vaccinated the second time to really hydrate a lot beforehand, and don't take Tylenol or Advil before you get your shot. We have not had any, we only had a pain in our arm. So just for you to know, to fully hydrate before your vaccination, and don't take Tylenol or Advil or aspirin before your shot. That's all I have to say. And then I did not do it. I did not hydrate myself. I didn't know about that. But I didn't take any of the medication either. And I had absolutely no side effects, only the very slight pain in the arm. Yeah, that's us too. But I did have a question. I was sorry I was late. We just had things at home. But getting back to work and what are Sean Pollock was saying something about the tests we have to take. What is that again? On the local website about the COVID course?
Yeah, the union sent out an email, I think, to all of the members about that.
Search Jermaine's emails, and one of them it's some kind of required from the it'll say in the subject line,
you could go to the IATSE.net website and then go to training and trust, and it'll tell you about the COVID required class.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Jermaine.
Thank you, everyone. So there's no difference in protocol if you've been vaccinated or not, according to everyone. Is that the case?
That is our understanding.
Right. One of my coworkers has been vaccinated twice, and they still have to take all of the, the PCR and the rapid tests and wear a mask and the whole 9 yards.
Well, the mask everyone has to do.
Jermaine, could you please send that information email to all members, and just that in itself, and say that is required. Thanks, Jermaine. As always, you are efficient.
Thank you.
And Jermaine, like maybe it might be a good idea, just to send the right to work document and the right to work summary again, just because maybe like the last time you sent it, a lot of people weren't back to work, but now a lot of people are getting back to work. So I think it, even though you've sent it already a few months ago, I think it's good, to sort of, periodically send out these
The
things.
the return to work document, is that what you meant, Sharon?
Yeah, like
Yeah.
what Tony was asking,
Yeah,
'cause
I'm
it's
assuming
not-
that if we had this many people that didn't know, there's probably more.
it's worth sending out again.
Definitely. Good call. Thank you.
I mean, we're, some of us are just not as good as others. But I don't know if I should bring this up because I'm afraid it's a Pandora's box question, but if we could talk about it maybe just really quickly, briefly. The $40 for a B camera and each additional camera, which has been the standard since I started in 2004, is that ever up for discussion or ever a negotiating thing in the negotiations?
It's always up for discussion.
What ends up happening? It's never taken seriously?
Eternally. Yeah, we brought it up at the last negotiations. It'll be brought up at the next negotiations. It'll probably be brought up until it changes.
And what are we pitching something? Are we pitching like an increase? And what is that if we are?
I think one of the things we talked about was trying to tie it in with the majors rate, so that as that increased over time, that the camera bump would increase with it, rather than being stuck in time at $40 and never moving. It would at least increase by 3% a year going forward. So that was the current, I think one of our current plans for pitching that change was to tie it to the rate. But it's something that we need to discuss, I guess, in the negotiation committee before we actually go into negotiations. But yeah, it's definitely on everyone's mind.
Yeah,
it
we
is
definitely
pretty
pushed for
ridiculous.
that at the last 2 rounds, so it's not something we've forgotten about,
Yeah.
but it's just very
Yeah, I just didn't know if it was historically understood to be like, don't touch it, or I mean, I personally obviously think it should be much more than, I personally think that it should be much more than 40, but also then tied into every other increase as well. But I know that it's hard to negotiate. And
But just so you know, Tony, everyone in New York, and I hope now after, the script supervisor committee sort of sent out that document for everyone to sign, is that, like we are charging per camera, so we're not doing the flat bump. Everyone now is like, we're just all saying, at least we're doing it per camera. And I know that there's been a few successes, with people who've asked for more, or have been able to sort of ask, like, if it's 3 cameras, then it's like $50, but that's kind of anecdotal, but a few people have made progress with that, but for sure it's always, when you negotiate, you should always ask and try to advocate for yourself. And the more that you do it, the more that people, even if you get, told no, the more they get to hear that question. And like, that's something that, if we can sort of do it as a group, as a craft, then, like maybe that's the way to do it.
yeah, I mean, obviously my experience is like many, where everyone just presumes that the minimums are what they're paying us, and it's just we're in the budget and nothing is negotiable. But you're right, we have to practice advocating and at least asking for more across the board, even to be told no, but also to train people that that's part of especially if you're doing multiple seasons on a show, you can go back and say, hey, so, now that I'm coming back and you have, my familiarity and my expertise and my familiarity with the entire way it works, like I'm worth a little bit more than this, and go for it that way.
Yeah. And then, if they say no, then you just say, oh, well, I'm probably going to have to add like 18 minutes every day, just so you know, because it is affecting my work, so.
Well, we know how much work it is to do a second camera, or a third camera. It's really not light. It's really like another chunk of work, like a huge percentage of additional work. So, all right, well, I'm glad to hear that, and good luck. And
yeah,
I will start asking, can I talk about making...
Everything is negotiable.
And the other thing, if I could just jump in, I'm sorry, other people had their hand raised. I'll wait.
No, that's right, Mary. I was just going to jump in and say that historically, that $40 bump, that $40 camera thing, when they first started, was half of our day rate. And when I was
yes.
way back when I was president, we were talking about it. They said that don't bring it up in negotiations because the script supervisors want to keep our travel. And that is the thing that that way back when everyone was afraid of losing for us. So Mary, is that not part of the story? Am I inaccurate?
I can't speak to what was said when you were president and discussions ahead of a negotiation. What I do want to say, I mean, for most of the people, I am, you know, the queen of broken records. But Tony, perhaps you don't know that in fact it was instituted $40 per for the multiple camera when the day rate, the 8-hour rate was $80.
Right.
One of the ways I have been personally successful in getting more than that is by having a heartfelt conversation with the production manager, explaining this is what it was. It was half again a day's wages. So if we actually made that analogy, it would now be almost $250. So, and then all of the other information that people have heard me say 1,000 times about all of the other things that they have to do and pay for when they have multiple cameras with the personnel and the equipment. And I detail all of that. And then, you know, it's tens of thousands of dollars over the course of a week. I'm asking for an additional $50 a day. So, you know, but I have been somewhat successful in pointing out those very specific costs that have become norm in our industry.
So Gail and Diane.
So that's, oh, sorry. I mean, that's exactly my problem on my Warner Brothers show. They will not budge with giving us a bump for a third camera. And we use 3 cameras pretty much every day. So I'm very resentful. And also my kit, which is a whole nother conversation, is only $20 a day, which they will not budge. They will not budge. We tried and like we were negotiating for over the course of about a month, going back and forth, and they would not budge. So that is why the one thing I was able to do is point out on the contract, the paragraph or the sentence about a script supervisor getting as much wrap time as needed to complete their work. And that's like the only thing I've got. So, so that's why certainly when we have 3 cameras, I make sure that I get paid for all the time that it takes to finish the notes that night. That's it.
Okay, Gail.
So I have a question. So Sharon, you said this too, and I had just heard this earlier in the week, that if you don't get the higher kit rental, then you tell them that it's going to take you longer to wrap. But my feeling is that it takes you whatever it takes to wrap. So if you have 3 cameras, it's going to take you however long it takes to wrap anyway. Why would I tell them that it's going to be shorter if I get paid the extra camera bump? I don't understand that.
I wasn't saying that, you know, I think you should charge for both. I mean, the way that I see it, multiple cameras is affecting 2 areas. It's affecting your focus and concentration when you're supervising a shot, and it's affecting your workload. Those are 2 separate things, you know? So like what I'm asking them to sort of to pay for is, you know, like when I'm sort of supervising 3 cameras instead of 2, you know, my concentration and my intensity has to be spread out and split across like 3 cameras, you know, which affects my ability to do the other things that I'm multitasking at the same time. And then obviously that's going to have a ripple effect on, you know, my work at the end of the day. You should charge for both, you know, but like I'm saying that if they're not acquiescing to what you're asking for, whatever the multiple camera bump, you know, then you should sort of like load that, you know, that workload more into the back end at the end of the day, you know. So I feel that you're charging for both because the way that I see it is affecting both areas, you know, but I would penalize that in the script notes and how
But
much time
you're
it's gonna
not
take
doing
for.
that in negotiation though. You're not saying to them, look, if you don't pay me the camera bump, I'm going to take longer to do my script notes. You're not saying that to them.
Well, so far I haven't, I mean, I've always charged per camera and I've never had pushback about that, you know. So if I feel that a lot of people have, you know, and so I kind of feel that if I had to sort of fight that fight, then that's how I would present it.
You know, but I just sort of take that to mean, you know, okay, you don't pay me my camera, I'm going to extend what I do for my script notes. And I don't think that works. I think our script notes are going to take us however long they take. And I don't think we should be telling them, well, I'm just going to make my script note time longer because you're not paying me for the
I'm
camera.
not saying that as a threat. I think that what I put in for my wrap time is very conservative anyway. And I know that I actually do more than what I put in for, even though I charge more than
Most
is
of us
normal.
do.
Yeah, you know, so like if I'm saying that, like, you know, when you negotiate, you're kind of sort of doing, you know, little favors for each other. You know, you're trying to sort of like negotiate in good faith, you know. So if they treat you well, you know, then, you know, you will, you know, not, you know, you will sort of also sort of cooperate. But when I do not feel cooperation, then I will go into charging them for every single minute that I work. You know, if somebody asks me a question by email and it takes me, you know, like 6 minutes to answer that email, then I will charge for that, when normally on a show that was treating me well, I wouldn't, you know.
Yeah, I agree
A
with
lot
you
of
in
things that we
concept.
just give away when we're treated well, and when we're not treated well, then I don't feel we should give those things away.
But yeah, I agree with you, Sharon. In real time, you are processing far more information, and that is, to me, what the camera bump is paying you for. And then undoubtedly, that will create a backlog probably down the line of further paperwork you have to get done by the end of the day, and that's your actual wrap time. So I agree with you both. Tony.
I just was reminded by what Sharon's saying that once in my career, did I have a production manager call me and say, okay, we're excited to have you on the job. What do you need? And I almost passed out, right? I was like, oh my God. So I told her what I needed and she said yes to all of it. And I have to tell you that, of course, you want to work with those people and give them what they need and not penny pinch, you know, because that's the way to do it, especially considering how little we cost relative to every other department. We're a very high value, low cost position. So I wish more people would do that because, of course, I'm not taking advantage of it. I'm just saying, thank you for asking what I need to do my job well.
Give us the name of that PM.
I wonder if I remember who it was. I have to look back and be reminded who it was. But anyway, my point is, at the loss, with that should be the standard. Without that, where they just think that you're a known quantity, I agree that it's really good, myself included, to get into the practice of saying, hey, this is what I need. You know, you think you think it's 8 hours of prep for a 60-page episode, plus a meeting, plus a production meeting, plus sitting through the table read, plus retiming 3 drafts of the script. It's not, sorry. It's literally just not. Just because you're used to getting that from someone who's grateful for the work or maybe shy about negotiating, it's literally not okay. It's unacceptable, and it's not even true. Like, it's just baseline not true in terms of hours. So anyway, thank you. I've been galvanized to negotiate further.
Yeah, but I hope I made that point across, like, you know, appropriately, Gail. You know, like, I wasn't saying that I was being combative or threatening to, you know, but I feel that there's always a little bit of give and take, you know, and, you know, like, they either respect you and sort of like, no, you know, or they will just try to shut you down on everything. And it's like, if they do that, then it's like, well, you know, then I can be just as hard,
Right.
and sort of, you know, I could, you know, keep time on the work that I do every single minute. You know,
It's funny though, I heard the same exact statement from another member when we were talking about commercial camera bumps this past week. And it was the same thing. It was like, look, you know, if they don't pay you the thing, then it's just going to take me longer to do my notes. And I just you know, I know what you're saying, that we all give them something, but just, I don't think we can say something like that to them, because that is just, you don't tell them. You know, you say, look, you know, 3 cameras takes me a long time to begin with, you know, but you know, the camera bump is important. You know, we're dealing with 3 cameras. We have to go around, we have to do this, we have to do that, we have to find out about the, you know, but I don't think we can tell them that because you're not paying us a camera bump, you're not going to get the extras that we give to you. I don't know.
Well, I mean, everyone negotiates in a different way. I'm just saying that, you know, I know the contract pretty well, I think, you know, and I've been involved in the negotiations with the majors contract for the past 2 times. So I've seen how they talk to us and how they've treated us and how they've shut down our things, you know, so that has informed me, like in the way that I negotiate, you know, like knowing things, just like the thing about the camera bump being half of a day's rate, just knowing that makes me really angry. So that empowers me when I negotiate, you know, so I just tell them how I roll, you know, and it's kind of like someone either accepts that or not, someone either sees my logic or not, you know, and, you know, all I can say is that when you negotiate, I think the more you know, the more it empowers you, you know.
I agree.
And it makes you a stronger negotiator. So for anyone who kind of needs more of that, you know, it's kind of like just being aware of these issues, and having that gives you the language, you know, when you do negotiate, you know, and for me, you know, I take a lot of that from knowing that kind of stuff, you know. So if you're, you know, so I don't know, it's just like I just know that I wasn't that great at it before, but the more I know that, you know, I just feel more confident to sort of say things that I wouldn't have said, you know, like 5 years ago. I don't know.
Linda?
Sharon, you mentioned before something that we signed. What I must either miss that or forgot. I'm sorry. What were you talking about in that?
Over to Alex on that one.
Yeah, so there was a 161 best script supervisor best practices document that we sent out last year was it September? I think it was September.
September, yeah.
August, yeah, we sent it out, and it goes over a lot of what we've discussed, including the camera bump, the history of that, what we're trying to do about it. But for anybody that hasn't read it, it's in your email. Maybe that's another thing Jermaine should send out to everyone.
Jermaine, could you resend that, please? Is that possible?
Jermaine, are you still there?
I couldn't get unmuted. Yeah, sure. I'll send that out again.
Yeah, so we were just asking everybody to take a look at it, read it, and sign and agree to it. It's not asking anybody to agree to anything above and beyond what they already agreed to when they joined the union. It's just sort of
I'm sure
reinforcing.
I looked at it and probably did it, but I'm sorry if I have if it slipped my mind. How about
Okay.
that?
Well, yeah. I guess, yeah, Jermaine, if you can send out those pieces of information, I think a lot of people will find that helpful.
Yeah, I sure will.
Everybody, it's about 1:15. I need to sign off, but I hope this was helpful. I hope everybody enjoyed it, and we're going to keep doing it. So
Thank you so much. It's really
thanks for
great
joining.
to see everyone.
Yeah, it's great to have you,
very
Tony.
much. I'm sorry I was late. I missed a lot, but thank you.
No worries.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Linda. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you all.
Bye, everyone.
Take
Thanks,
care.
Jermaine.
Thanks. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.